So tonight we're talking about diving from your vehicle. Now, I know I personally have dove from four different types of cars. I've dove from an SUV. I've dove from a four-door sedan. I've dove obviously from my truck, and I've dove from a station wagon. So I know what I've done. Let's talk about what you guys have done. Why don't we start? Why don't we start with Greg? And the reason I want to start with Greg is Greg had a dive master that dove from a BMW M3.
Yes.
I kid you not.
Yeah.
Hey, they got a good trunk.
That's very, very true. He strapped his tanks into the front seat because there's only, two seats. He strapped his tanks and he always had the top down. And so it was kind of
to show up at the pool and at Jamestown, and I'm just thinking, what the heck is this guy doing?
Yep.
But he made it work.
He did.
Made it work. So, Greg,
Yeah.
what kind of vehicles have you dove from, first of all?
Sure. So my first one was a Jeep Wagoneer in that style.
Yep. Like an SUV style.
Yeah, I think like three different styles of them, but yes, that. The Nissan Pathfinder.
Okay.
And the Suburban. So I've had three Suburbans. So, and all different years. So, yeah, absolutely. The best one for me, Suburban, by far.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Ryan, how about you?
Primarily pickup trucks.
Yep.
I have a couple of different pickups. I think the best one though was my what was that thing? A 1995 Saturn SL2.
You gotta love it.
Oh yeah, I've got war wounds from that one.
Okay, so we're gonna start with the most difficult. Brian, you and I have dove from sedans or coupes. Okay,
Yep.
We're talking about a regular car. So I found it to be an incredible pain in the butt. How about you? What'd you find?
I only did it because I didn't have a truck at the time.
I was gonna say the exact same thing.
It's doable.
I dove from a Buick Skylark four-door sedan with plush velour seats. They were light blue. Okay.
Not after that dive.
But I guess bottom line, it can be done. If you want to make it happen, you can make anything happen. Granted, yes, diving from a four-door sedan or a coupe, I don't know how to describe it other than a pain in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have any place to gear up. You don't have enough trunk room to carry, or I didn't have enough trunk room to carry all my gear. So my gear was between the trunk, the back seat, the front floor, and then if I had someone with me, their feet were up on the dash and all kinds of funky positions.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you find diving your Saturn?
The worst part about it for me was dives over and everything's wet.
Well, okay, so let's pause right there for a minute. I believe Greg and I agree on this. That's why we push the totes. You can throw all your gear, wet, whatever, in the tote. You can put your tanks in the back seat. They're not dripping wet, kind of thing.
Right.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you.
So everything's wet.
Yep.
How do you deal with that? So I went and I got a tote.
Yep.
Totes don't fit in the trunk of a Saturn.
Oh,
At least not a tote that can hold any gear.
well, they did in the trunk of a Buick, buddy.
So I picked up, like your typical tote, like you would get size-wise for dive gear.
Yep, yep.
It was about 4 inches too tall to close the trunk.
Okay.
Cut it right off.
Yep,
I was gonna.
that's
say
where my
that.
battle scar came from.
That
I was being stupid. I was using a regular lock blade knife to cut the top off, and I ended up sticking the knife in my leg.
Oh my God.
I ended up with a couple of stitches. Oh,
Yeah.
it was fun.
Public safety announcement. We're not. We're talking about diving from a car, not the proper use of tools.
Oh, tools, yes. But it was right after that I went, man, I gotta get a truck. Because is when everything's dry and everything's clean.
Yep.
I could pack most everything that I needed in the trunk of that car. It had a decent sized trunk.
Yep.
When everything's wet and nasty, now, well, you don't want to stuff this thing up in that corner on top of you. You want it in the tote. You want it protected.
No, what about putting the tote? What about putting the tote in the back seat or something?
Didn't fit through the door.
Okay.
It was a 4-door. Didn't fit through the door.
Okay.
Because I thought of that too. But it just, I could load everything. I could load 2 tanks.
Yep.
And I think, you know Bill, my buddy Bill.
Yep.
I could put all of his gear in. I could put my gear in, and it was okay. That poor car was loaded. Oh, holy cow, was it loaded down? But it was the afterwards that really made it difficult in trying to keep the car so it didn't get completely trashed after a dive.
Gotcha.
Because salt water, or even if you're diving fresh water, there's always some muck, there's always some stink that comes with you, and you get that into the cloth seats, and have fun getting it out. Actually donning your gear, actually putting everything together, having it in the trunk was nice. The height was right. You put a little mat on the ground, get dressed, and things are right there. So it was actually nice. You sit on the back bumper, put everything on. In that regard, it was decent.
Yeah.
Where I really didn't like it was afterwards. Because I might come home from a dive, and then Penny goes, "Hey, let's go to dinner."
Not in that car, you're not.
Well, then that's your car. That's your car,
So, okay, so good transition. Neither one of you mentioned this. I have personally dove from a station wagon, and that actually is my favorite dive vehicle as far as getting geared up, being the right height. Just very comfortable to sit down. All your gear fits in the back. The tote fits in the back. Everything was really nice for local dives. I'm gonna say that for local dives, it was great. Like I said, it was my favorite car. Everything fit nicely. Once again, right height for everything. I have no complaints about that. Obviously, for long trips or technical, I don't want to say overnight trips where you had multiple sets of doubles or baggage to go away to go to Florida or whatever. Yeah, not really ideal for a lot of gear, but ideal for a single or couple divers. Absolutely loved it. So moving on to the next, I guess, vehicle, let's talk about SUVs. Because I dove from an SUV. I didn't find it as comfortable as the station wagon. But Greg, you have like the mother of all SUVs, so go ahead.
Right. So I've never had a car. I think I grew up with a car. My parents had a car.
Spoiled kid.
Yeah, no, but when I was able to start diving, I've never had. I always towed a boat, so I needed a truck. I never had a pickup truck, although I had a work pickup truck for a little bit just to use. Um, I always went to buy the vehicle with a scuba tank in hand and a tote. I know it sounds kind of weird, and a lot of the dealers when I was buying the vehicles always thought that I was just kind of a weirdo. There was a few for me that there was some criteria. The tanks had to fit in, right? They had to fit in straight. That was one criteria. And then of course I made racks in all of mine, in all of my in the back. In most SUVs in the third row, like on Suburbans, if you take out the rear seats completely, you have ridges. So I made a platform, and then I built a rack system for tanks, for standing tanks. When I guess what I mean is for tanks that I wasn't using, to get them out of the way and get them up and off to the side.
I got a
But
shed.
criteria, what's that?
I said I got a shed.
Yeah, right. The criteria for me was I had to be able to sit on the back bumper with my feet flat.
Yep.
So when I went to look, I tested out the Nissan, the big one, Armada, the
Yep.
Nissan Armada. That just was too high for me. The Ford Expedition, because I could have bought any one of them. It didn't matter. I never would buy a new one, but I tested them all. I ended up with the Suburban, and the Suburban had two options: double doors that open up to the sides. We'll call them barn doors.
Yep.
And the one that has the lift gate. I always chose lift gate on all my vehicles.
Keeps you dry in the rain.
Well, the rain and the sun; those are the two big things. And then, of course, at night you can hang certain things from there, from the lift gate, as long as you're. But that was the criteria. So then, once I was able to find the right truck for me,
Yep.
at the right price, I was able to figure out what I needed to do to make it convenient. If you can tell from my background, I have lots of bins, and but I actually found that these bins, while they're good, they're not strong enough.
Yep.
And that's what I think a lot of people find. So I went to a specialty store and bought I think it was Rubbermaid or something. It's solid as a rock. And that I've had that one probably for 25 years. Not an issue with it. I ended up putting wheels on the end of it, so I can tow it around. But yeah, for me it was the Suburban because it just had the room, and then especially when I had buddies that wanted to go with me, I could throw the gear in. Well, Todd, you met me at the house how many times? 100
Yeah, I
times.
know. Yep. Or at
So
the rest stop.
and the thing was, I've always brought gear for me and everybody else just in case.
Yep.
So I would always make sure that there was enough gear, and just because we've all had it happen.
Yep.
And somebody forgot a glove or whatever.
So a full-size SUV works all around best for you.
For me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
When I dove from an SUV, I dove from a Ford Escape. So
I remember that.
We're talking a much smaller,
Yep.
a much smaller vehicle than your Suburban or your Expedition, Excursion, stuff like that.
Right. Yep.
It was too high for me.
It's what you're comfortable with. Who cares?
Well, that's just it. Okay, so that I guess going into the next category, Brian and I both dove from pickup trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And although the tailgate was a little higher than I'd like, the pickup truck carried absolutely everything I could ever need at a dive site or going to a dive boat or going on vacation with a lot of extra dive gear. Plus the whole family, the luggage, the this, the that. I mean, that that to me was the best of all worlds, although it wasn't as comfortable for me to gear up as my station wagon. It was the best all around choice for me because of the versatility of it. Brian, what do you think?
The one thing that I don't like about using a truck
Okay.
is there's no protection. Your Suburban, your Excursion, it's built on the same chassis,
Yep.
but it's enclosed. But like going when we take our student trips out to Dutch Springs, I can't tell you how many times I've had 40, 45 tanks in the bed of my truck, plus all my gear, dive gear, camping stuff for a 3-day trip.
Yep.
And the tanks aren't for me. They're for, they're for everybody else. Plus all the crates of weights.
Yep.
We might bring 400 pounds of weight, to one of those trips because it's with students and you're trying to get things worked out. So the truck was for stuff like that absolutely essential.
Yep.
One of the things we're working on right now is using a trailer, an enclosed trailer.
Okay.
So we can get it all set up. I think it's a little bit bigger than a typical truck bed. Something like 8-9 feet long. But
That's perfect. I used one of those to go to Canada. I put all of our guys, was 4 of us in the truck, and I towed up one of those little ones. It wasn't a gigantic one.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's hold up on the
That was the best.
because we're going to get to the trailers after we do the pickup trucks because I've never dove from a trailer. You guys have. So what else did you like about the pickup truck?
Just its carrying capability.
Okay.
That we didn't have to feel like we were limited in, well, do we really need to bring this piece? You know what? Forget it. Bring it. If we don't need it, we don't need it. If we need it and we don't have it, now we're stuck. Now we're scrambling to go find something. So just that ability to bring whatever.
Agreed.
Strap it in, lock it down. I've got tank rack. I have a tank rack that I built that's in the truck.
Yep.
The tanks get all lined up on that, strapped in. And then you just start tucking everything everywhere. And so it makes it, you can bring anything you need.
Yep.
More than, and then using the tailgate to get ready, put everything together, sit down, or I lean up on the tailgate. It is a little high.
I can't sit on the tailgate. You're a little
That's true
than me, so you might be able to.
I don't usually sit on it to get ready. But I'll lean back on it, and it actually puts my back plate and wing at a good height.
Yep.
So I don't really have to scoot much, put my arms through. It's actually one of the easiest ways for me to get into my wing is on the back of my truck.
So let's talk about the trailers since we're talking about height levels and being able to gear up and sit down and lean back. How do you guys do it? We'll start with Greg because I know Greg's done it a lot. Brian, I believe you're just getting into it.
We're just looking to set it up. I actually haven't dove out of a trailer yet.
Okay, so Greg, let's go to you. What do you like about a trailer? What don't you like? Go ahead.
Okay, sure. So depending on the size of the trailer. So what we used to do is we used one of the shops had a big trailer.
Yep.
And that was a complete walk-in setup. You can put a recliner chair. You can do anything you want. Benches. It was big.
Yep.
When we went to Canada, though, we rented from U-Haul, which was definitely the way to go. It was a lowrider one. The only problem with that is you whacked your head every time you got into the back. But it was perfect because you could throw all your stuff in there and not smell up your vehicle, especially in a closed vehicle. In a pickup truck, you can hose out off the bed, throw all your gear in there, hose everything off, and it drains. But you can't really do that when you're on a trip for, a couple, 3, 4, 5 days. So I like the trailer. What I didn't like was the fear of a flat tire. Um, it's just that extra piece that you're towing around. That's what I didn't like about it.
Okay.
But other than that, it worked out pretty good.
Now, how did you get geared up with the trailer? Where did you
Yeah.
set up gear? Where did you don your gear or put on your gear?
I have one of those Stanley, I think it's a Workmate or whatever that's called, that plastic one.
Yep.
I've had that forever. As a matter of fact, it's on my front porch right now. And so when I set up, I would always set up the night before.
Yep.
And I'd make sure I'd have air in my tanks before the dive shop closed.
Yeah, right.
Just to verify.
Yep.
And then I would make sure all my gear is ready to go. And then so when I'm opening up, whether it's the Suburban or the trailer, my gear is already there, all prepared. And then I would just I'd get my dry suit, get prepared, dry suit on, and then I'd pick up my unit and then put it right on top of the Workmate.
Okay.
I think it's called. I'm not sure what it's called.
Very cool.
But that's kind of how I did it.
Okay. Now, okay, so let's go, I guess, back to the beginning. Brian, you and I have dove from sedans and coupes. Okay. Let's talk about, how do you set up your car? How did you set your car up to dive out of? Did you have a specific way or placement to put tanks, all your gear? How'd you do it?
It all comes down to loading the car in the right order.
Yep.
So I made sure that I put my regulators, computers, all the crushable stuff down first, and then threw the tanks on top. Because no diving experience is complete without something broken.
Woo!
Just a joke. So my Steel 130s went in first.
This is why Brian's diving tables for his tech class.
So now the tanks, I put the tanks in first, and what was nice about the cars is I could actually put the tanks butt first. I could put 4 tanks across, and right where the trunk would open up near the back seat, they would fit there, and then that kind of held them in place. So then I'd have basically like a duffel bag that had in it my fins, regulators, all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Aside of my exposure suit. In that bag would then get pushed up on top of the tanks, up against the back seat. If I had a buddy, then his went in there as well, and then our exposure suits would go in the back, kind of whatever space was left, and into the sides behind like the tail light areas.
Okay.
Where they opened up a little bit.
Okay.
And again, that's where, I tried doing the tote thing, but containing it in a tote meant there was a lot of space that I couldn't use. So what I ended up doing was lining it with plastic, just lining the whole trunk with plastic, like a 4 mil plastic sheet.
Yep.
And that way it was lined. I threw a few towels down underneath it, on top of the plastic, but under the dive gear. Just so this way here, I didn't have water sloshing around. And then when I got home, it was easy to clean out. But if the trunk if you weren't careful putting your stuff in, you had to put it all in the same way.
Yeah.
So at the end of the dive, tanks went in first, everything went back in your bag got pushed up, and I actually started putting my exposure suit in another duffel bag, whether it be a wetsuit or dry suit or whatever it was. I put that in another duffel bag that I could then tuck in the side, and it wouldn't, kind of unravel and go everywhere.
Gotcha.
It worked.
Yeah. Oh, we both agreed at the beginning, diving from a sedan and a coupe it's doable. It does the job. It's not comfortable. It's not convenient. It's not. This is what I got. I want to go diving. I got to make it work. So
Would you guys agree? Would you guys agree that diving from like a Jeep Wrangler is even worse?
I've never done it.
Nothing fits in there.
I've never done it, but I can imagine it's a nightmare. But
Oh yeah.
going back to the sedan, Brian, I set mine up similar to you, as I had my tanks on the bottom, and I had my tote because my trunk would close with a tote. I had my tote packed in the reverse order that I was going to use stuff. So I take my tote out. I'd have my BC that I'd put on my. This is going back to strictly recreational, because this is when I first started diving. I had my BC on top in the tote, so I'd take my BC out, put my BC on my tank. My regulators were next, and then so on and so forth. I'd get my mask ready, blah blah blah. So I packed my tote in the reverse order that I was going to use my gear. And once again, it worked. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. But if it's all you got and this is what you want to do, it's like anything else. If I want to go skiing and the only thing I have is a scooter, I'm going to find a way to go skiing with my scooter. But okay, so next step, my station wagon, because I'm the only one that dove from a station wagon. I loved it. And I basically set the station wagon up the same way I did the car. So I had my tote of gear, and I put that the long way, and I'd have my tanks, 1, 2, or 3, next to it. Open up the hatch, everything's all ready to go, and I go.
I would have thought that what was that thing called? That minivan. It wasn't a minivan. What was that?
That Transit I had?
I would have thought that would have been the best.
Dude, I'm not going to make the rude comments, but do you know how many questions I got about being a stalker or with that van?
Yeah. Because you had that sleeper. So what's that?
I had a cot.
Yeah.
Brian, the way I had this set up, I had a Transit van for about a year. I had a cot set up. I had hangers. I had my scooter. I had my doubles.
It was a great setup. It really was.
It was awesome for me to just go get away. I didn't have to get a campsite or anything else. I literally slept in my van at the dive site. Have a nice day. It was great. I loved it. It was. I got a lot of looks.
I think Chris Farley may have had something to say about, living in a van down by the river, but
Oh, okay. So Greg, let's talk about your setup in an SUV. Now this is a full-size SUV, and you used to have yours set up real nice. I loved it. Like, it was a little too high for my taste, but I like the way you had it set up. So talk to me about.
So right. So when you open up the hatch, I had the platform.
It opens like this, or does it open like this?
Like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like it was a hatch. I don't know what it's called. What I did was on the side is I actually had.
Tired.
What?
I said, "Can you tell I'm tired?"
Hey, well, I had racks. I had the regular scuba racks that you'd find in a boat.
Okay, so,
with it.
Yes.
I don't know what they're called.
I don't either, but Brian, do you know what we're talking about? Let me see if I can keep going, Greg. I'm going to see if I can find a picture.
So along the sides, I had basically 4 tanks on each side. and those are just basically, single tanks. Although I had a couple doubles set up there too, and it was just easy to just flip them down. My doubles were set flat down, and then right next to it, I'd have a couple totes, and the totes had all my dry, whether it was my dry suit. Every piece that had the ability to have a clip on it was clipped off in one of the totes. And so the major tote that I always used was that Rubbermaid. It was a white one though. It was solid as I still have it, solid as a rock. And what I did was my fins would bungee on the sides, sticking up, and I was able to put a few things in the pockets of the fins. And then anything that needed to be clipped was bungeed with a bungee, basically was clipped off to the bungee. So nothing really. So when I got to the dive site, basically, I would literally pull the bin out and pull that Stanley Workmate out,
Yep.
and then literally work right from there. I had the hatch up. If it was really hot, I'd throw a towel over on top of the glass to keep it cooler. That really worked well. If it was raining out, I'd pull out my tent, and the problem with the tent is I broke so many of them. Back 20 years ago, those little plastic square edges would snap in a heartbeat. So I probably went through.
Can you guys
to
see
that, but mine was
this?
on a track. Yeah.
Yeah, this is similar to what Greg had in his truck.
Yep.
These two pieces fold down so you can
Right.
put a set of doubles.
Snap racks.
Yep.
Snap racks, yeah. But what I did was I actually had a metal rack welded in first. So
Yeah.
it was one big piece,
Yes.
and then I put that to the sides of it. So I think it was relatively solid. I've never gotten to an accident. Probably wouldn't hold. It's plastic, but it was bungeed in pretty tight.
it was a nice little setup. I like that.
Yeah, it worked really good.
Yep.
The other thing I did was I kept my first aid and my toolbox typically right behind the driver's seat on the ground.
Yep.
And that was the easiest thing for me because, as far as my toolbox, it was always in a little tiny Pelican. I always had a bigger one, but in a tiny Pelican box. Anything that I thought that I might need usually went up on the roof rack, and I have a ski carrier,
Yeah.
like a Yakima ski carrier, and so I would throw anything like extra wetsuits for people that need just in case, extra hoods, extra fins, all that junk would go up on top.
Yeah.
I would very rarely have to open it up, but if I did, it was there. As far as regulators, like I said, I always had my gear set up the night before and tested, ready to go. I learned it's kind of funny because during one of my cave classes, I was doing it with an instructor from Germany and one from England, and they didn't set their gear up the night before.
Really?
And which was a little strange to me. Maybe they just weren't used to doing it that way. And so we got started without them. And they learned, the next morning they were set up, ready to go. But I just find that a lot easier. And that's, teaching an open water class, I always stress that. Make sure that your stuff is ready the night before, and that kind of worked out. So.
Okay.
That's
Very
where I am with my Suburban. I always liked the Suburban. I remember the one time I had a flat tire. It was on my my Pathfinder, and we were at.
I remember that. Yes.
I hear a thump, thump, thump. Todd, I've never seen somebody change a tire so fast. Like 3 minutes, the whole tire was done. I didn't even know how to release the tire from underneath. I never had to. I was like, I got it. Watch.
So, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So, Brian, we're gonna move to pickup trucks. So tell me how you have your pickup truck set up and how you organize stuff and how you do stuff.
So in the bed of my truck, I got a one of those truck toolboxes, which does not have any diving gear in it. On one iteration of setting stuff up, I took the box, I used it for my gear. Um, Without properly treating the inside of the box, the aluminum rubs off on everything.
Ah,
And you wind up with this like anti-seize like coating on everything.
really? I didn't know
It
that.
is, especially once salt water gets in there,
Yep.
forget it. You've got stuff, everything is stained with the aluminum. So that was one trip. And I went, yep, never doing that again, because I had no intention of lining the truck box. I just wasn't going to do it.
Right.
So what I did is I built a wooden rack that's got eyelets in it, properly spaced for holding tanks. So it's a 2x4 that goes across the top rails of the truck. It drops. It actually insets down about 5 inches for the to be able to hold the short steel 65s,
Yep.
because they are considerably shorter. So I had to lower that top rail down a little bit. And then I also have a board at the bottom that catches the bottom of the tank. Bungee cord, strap in the tanks. If we have to do multiples, like I mentioned before, going to Dutch Springs sometimes, we've we had one trip. I had 42 tanks, or no, I had 47 tanks. Bert had 38 tanks, and then we each had 4 crates of weights. Making nuts. It would so like in that we had the rack, had tanks mounted directly to it, and then in the space in between the tanks, we'd put another row of tanks, and then a ratchet strap to hold it in. Another row of tanks, ratchet strap. So it all held in very tightly
Yep.
and didn't go anywhere. But that's diving with, you're bringing a ton of students. You're not going to dive for yourself. When I go for myself, I'll have 4 or 6 tanks in there. It holds doubles just as easily as it holds singles because of the way it's set up. If I'm going for me, I'll have everything set up before I go. I'll load it that way. If it's me plus a bunch, I generally don't leave my gear set up. I have it disassembled. Everything's in my gear bag. I use the I can't think of the name right now. Stall sack. I use a stall sack gear bag, and so my tanks are up there. Everything else is in my stall sack, and then I have one for my dry suit. My stall sack is nice. I can even put my wetsuit, my fins, my regs. I can put everything in the one bag, and it actually makes it pretty simple.
Okay, so when I had you actually helped me set my pickup truck up, so you're probably familiar with it. Diving a rebreather, I have to do all these checks the night before because it has to hold pressure for 24 hours or overnight. So all my stuff was set up the night before, and I guess looking back on it, it might not have been the best idea, but it is what it is. Because things out of a pickup truck, if you don't have an alarm on the truck, the things in the bed of the truck can easily walk away. That being said, I had to take my chances and do what I had to do. So my bailout tanks, once I started tech diving, everything was set up the night before, just so it was get there, get my dry suit on, and go. I didn't have to worry about checking regulators, hooking regulators up, doing choke because I had side mounted bottles. So I didn't have to set all those things up. They were already pre-set up. All I had to do was undo a bungee cord, bring the tanks down to the water, put my dry suit on, put my rig on, and walk down to the water. So that's why I did what I did. But keep going with how you have it set up and what you do. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to interject.
Mhm. So for weights, I keep my weights in a ammo can. And I keep that's actually bungeed by the tailgate on one of the sides there. Um, so again, diving me, you, two of us, diving two of us out of the truck, tanks are up against the rack.
Yep.
The rest of it is just kind of laying in the back, because there's no shortage of space. Anything that you might consider fragile or very important, like say your wrist computer, that inside the truck with us. I actually have a charging station in there. I can plug the computers in to keep them charged up if they are that style. And then the back seat. If we're not using it to put somebody in the back seat of the truck, I fold it up, and now we've got tons of space there to put stuff that absolutely needs to stay dry.
Right.
A change of clothes, what have you. In one of my former trucks, I had a decent rack in it, a ladder rack, and I would actually project. I would take a couple pieces. I had, being the guy that I am, I had a couple of steel pipes laying around that I would bring with me to the dive site. Once there, I would set these pipes would connect to the rack and hang off the back of the truck. So now I had places to hang stuff if we were doing it overnight, like at Dutch or something like that. We could hang stuff up to let it dry, or throw a tarp over it, and we now have an area that's tented over to be able to get ready in if it starts raining or if it's too really hot baking in the sun while you're trying to gear up, get into your stuff. I really, really miss that ladder rack. That ladder rack was, and it wasn't anything fancy. It was literally two uprights in the back, two uprights in the front, and a box on top. It's all it was. But with that framework that was there, I was now able to hang stuff off it, other pipes that I could then, make shelters with, make drying racks. It was great for, you flooded your dry suit, you could hang it by the boots and let it drain because it was up high. It could actually,
Glad you brought that up because Greg saw a video of a dive I did with a bunch of friends up in New England. And I thought it was Brian's dry suit, but it was Greg's dry suit that I was borrowing and flooded. I had full of water in a dry suit up to my waist. Okay. These guys videoed it while they peeled his wetsuit off of me, and you just see all the water dump out. It was hilarious. So I'm sorry, I had to throw that in. That was classic.
well,
I'm like, throughout the dive, I'm going, I'm getting feels kind of wet. It's kind of cold. And I got to the surface, I looked like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in a black suit.
Brian, have Todd send you that video. It's like 20 seconds.
I've seen it.
Okay, and did you and you've listened very carefully to what they actually said?
That I did not.
You have to listen. You will laugh. At 2 a.m, I was laughing. So
I will take a closer listen. I was stuck on the fact that he goes, "Oh yeah, Bri, I remember this dive. It's when you said the mouse chewed through the toe." That was the comment you put with the video.
Yes, because I thought that was it.
And I'm like, because I had that happen on my dry suit. A mouse decided to get into it, and it chewed from the inside. So to look at the foot from the outside, you couldn't see anything. Flip the thing inside out, and you could see the chew. I was like, "Oh, you gotta be." But of course, I didn't realize this until after getting in the water. So that was one time I flooded. I had a little hiatus. I got that fixed. Actually, I think, no, anyway, the toe got fixed. I forget exactly how, but anyway, that got fixed. I go to Dutch Springs. First time I'm pulling my dry suit out in, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years. I'm walking into the water, and the water level inside the suit is matching the water level outside the suit as I'm walking in the water. We had students. I did 2 dives, completely flooded. There was no thermal insulation whatsoever.
It was a wetsuit.
It was worse than a wetsuit. So,
Okay, hang
but,
on.
but
We're
having that rack, going back to the
getting way off
truck,
topic.
having that rack, because Bert, a couple of times at Dutch, Bert flooded bad
Yep.
before he got out of his Seasoft dry suit. We used to use that rack. We'd flip it inside out and then put attach the boots up at the top.
Right.
So it would actually, really drain out. It wasn't pooling anything anywhere. And I got to tell you, man, that a ladder rack that has a little bit of, flexibility in how you use it. Oh, what a wonderful thing to have on the back of a truck for diving.
I have on my Suburban, I have that Yakima rack. I'm not even sure I don't think they make the round ones anymore. The round pipes that go across.
Right, you have the extensions that pull out.
Yeah, I have the extensions that are actually used for like kayaks or canoes, to make it easier to load up. So I bought 2 of them, usually just buy one, but I bought 2 of them and they pull right out an extra 3 or 4 feet. And that I would always I'd have hangers on that all the time.
Yeah.
After a dive. It worked out pretty good. I tried once to make a little cover so somebody can get changed. It didn't really work out well. It wasn't big enough.
The doors on Brian's truck work well for that because instead of opening like this, they open like this.
Yeah,
hang a towel or a sheet,
yeah,
and you have a little changing room.
right. Which totally makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, open up the 2 windows, tuck the corner of a towel in the window on the front door and the window on the back door, roll them back up so it holds it.
Yeah.
So you can still look around and see if anyone's, like really going to come invade your privacy. But the towel will protect you so you can change. The only drawback, if you will, is if somebody walks up to the other side of the truck and opens the door.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I was thinking about most of our dives. A lot of people, when they dive in the summer, they're so, especially if you're wearing a dry suit. The reason why most of us got prepared the night before was so that when we got there, we weren't sweating, and that's the worst, right? You put it's really hot out, and you're putting your undergarments on, which basically a snowsuit. And then putting your dry suit on, and you're sitting there going, "Oh my God, what did I just do?" And you're already drenched, and that's why, to me, getting prepared the night before. So all you have to do is grab your fins and mask, put your unit on, and go. Really, really worked out. I always got really hot in the winter, though. What was kind of interesting is, so Todd always brought like a heater. Which worked out really well. But I could keep my truck on and have the heater full blast. And when the back hatch was open, I could sit back there and be nice and warm. Literally sit on the tailgate. It's not really a tailgate, or maybe that's what it's called. And just that warm air would come right out there. It was really good.
Mm.
So hey guys, we're running short on time. So just to recap, let's go around the table. Greg, what's your favorite vehicle, real quick, and what's the favorite thing about it?
The Suburban, for me, is the most comfortable vehicle I've ever driven in.
Okay.
And I've had many, many different styles of vehicles.
So what's the one thing you like most about diving out of a Suburban?
The space.
Okay.
The space.
Space and comfort.
Comfort, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Brian,
what do you say?
Based on experience, I'm going to say I really like my truck. It has the versatility I'm looking for. However, in the past bit, I've been thinking more van style, but I want to avoid that creeper, free candy thing. Um,
I wasn't
so I
going
don't
to
know.
say that. So
I don't know. I may need to rethink that. But no, just the versatility of, like, I need a truck, just in general life. I need a pickup truck for the things that I do, the stuff that I get myself involved in. So to buy another vehicle strictly for diving would probably be something like a van, just where things are enclosed, whether it be a Suburban or something like that. But I mean, for me, a pickup is the way to go. I can carry anything I need to carry stuff for other people. I just love the versatility of it.
okay,
Can I back up a sec?
go ahead.
Can you back up for 1 sec? I was thinking about this. What's in our garage? What I have at work. If I was to rebuy something specifically for diving, it would be a Ford Transit, probably either a high roof or a mid roof, and then set that up so I'd have seats for you could have the best of both worlds.
Mm.
Yeah,
The only problem with a high roof or a mid roof is that you can't get into some garages. So that's always been a challenge, is making sure I can get in, especially living near a city, to get into a. You just can't do it with that. But for strictly diving vehicle, that's a good vehicle to have. It doesn't make you look like the big creeper that we are. It just makes it easier because you can set it up both ways.
gotcha. And for me, I loved my pickup truck. I That's what I'm gonna get when I trade the other car in. It like Brian was saying, it gives you, to me, the best of all worlds. Um, Between the payload of the stuff you can carry in the bed of the truck, but my truck was extremely comfortable. I don't know what kind of cab they call it. I had two full doors. So I mean, I took what, 6 trips to Florida with the family, all of our luggage, all the dive gear to go diving in cave country or in Pensacola for multiple days. So I had a lot of stuff in that truck and everyone was comfortable. It was an enjoyable ride down there.
Did you worry at all about people stealing stuff out of it? That's the only reason why I haven't bought a pickup truck.
The only reason I don't worry about things like that goes back to the old adage, a lock keeps honest people honest. Okay. My homeowner's insurance or my renter's insurance covers anything in the bed of my truck. Anything.
I just look at that as an inconvenience.
I'm not saying it.
Really
I'm
be
not
tough.
saying it isn't.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely not saying it isn't.
Right.
Like I said, for me, it was the way to go, and it is the way to go.
I was
There's definitely more room. I'll tell you one thing: in the bed of a pickup truck is almost 3 times as big as the room in a Suburban. So, like the trucks that have on a pickup truck, the 2 full doors, well, 4 doors that are full size. Think of that as the front seat of a Suburban, the front
Yep.
portion. But the payload in the back on a pickup is
Well, also, I don't have the restriction of a roof
right.
over the bed of the truck,
Yeah.
and I did like the van and having the van set up, but I wasn't able to stand up in the van. I'm 6 feet tall, so I'm getting dressed like this. I mean, it was nice for the convenience to be able to go wherever you want, and I had a bed.
Yeah.
It was inconvenient because I literally had to climb over everything to get into bed. So everything has it. I guess it's good points and its bad points, advantages, disadvantages.
Mhm.
I would hands down go with a truck every time.
I'll say, from the security side of things,
Yeah.
with the trips that Bert and I have done, where we have had the dive shop loaded between our 2 trucks. We actually stopped once and totaled up approximate value of what we had between our 2 trucks, and vowed never to speak of that number ever again because it was really high. And in the trip, we at one point we stopped at a mall and went inside and had a meal. So we were inside for hour and a half ish thereabouts at a sit down restaurant. When the truck is packed correctly, everything is strapped in, nothing is left loose and about. And it's not. It doesn't look like it would be an easy snatch and getaway. When you look at it, it's if you wanted to try to take something from there, it has the appearance that I'm going to be here for a few minutes trying to figure out how to get this thing out. And most of the stuff in the bed is usually pretty heavy. Like, you'll have stuff in the totes, but then that tote is strapped shut so that it doesn't blow open in the breeze.
Yeah.
And then there's stuff stacked in it around it. There might be a strap over the top of all of that. So it doesn't have the appearance of an easy grab.
Well, and even that, it doesn't have the appearance of an easy grab. Brian, going back to what you were saying, all your valuable electronics and gear and stuff like that is in the cab of the truck. I mean, I did have my rebreather in the back of the truck. It was strapped in and buried with everything in front of it. You're not getting that out very quick and very easy. But all of my backup computers, all my electronics, anything of any high dollar value was in the cab of the truck locked. I've never had a problem. You're going to steal a set of my doubles. You're not running very fast with my doubles. Even my scooter, which weighs 60 pounds.
Yeah, that's heavy.
The scooter.
You're not going far.
You're not running far and fast with that.
Yeah, that's true. I'll tell you a funny story. 2-second story. On my Suburban, if you press the wrong button on the key fob, the back window pops open.
Oh, no.
I didn't even know it. I'm driving along. I must have hit the thing, and I heard a little whistling, but I didn't even think twice about it. And, after the full day, I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, that thing was all that somebody had to do was just open it.
Yeah.
And you change whatever's in there.
So, guys,
there's pros and cons.
We're just about out of time. Really good discussion tonight. Just a real quick recap. Diving out of a sedan in a car stinks.
Could be literally.
You have your SUVs and your trucks, which both have their advantages and disadvantages. A new style of diving that I've personally never done. Brian and Bert are getting into. Greg has done it, diving from a trailer. I love the concept, being able to have everything set up on racks and walls and hangers and straps, and you literally back up to the trailer and go. That's what I like about it, would be the ease and convenience of just grabbing my gear and going. So, gentlemen, we're gonna end this meeting, or not the meeting. We're gonna end the. How do I end the Facebook thing?
You should be able to click on it and say end stream.
And live on stop live stream. There we go. I'm gonna stop recording too.